Hey guys, how are you? I hope you're all doing very well. This afternoon I'm going to be doing another movie review. This movie is an action thriller from South Korea, Korean language English subs, released in the year 2013, directed by Woo Sik-jo and Byung-soo Kim, and this film is called Cold Ice. So Cold Ice is about a gang of ruthless bank robbers in South Korea. They're pulling off these heists and the police really don't have a comeback. They really can't stop them doing this. And it appears that this gang of bank robbers are being led and orchestrated by a mastermind criminal. So this mastermind criminal is going to pull off one last hit, and this is going to be his hit to go into retirement, but the police are desperately trying to stop him from getting to that target. So in order to do that, they assemble this crack team of surveillance specialists, led by the main character, who's this young female who's newly recruited, and she's going to try and tackle this mastermind head on in order to prevent this last heist from happening. And in doing that, they're going to bring these two sides together even closer, which is ultimately going to lead to a lot of danger. So what that danger is, something you're going to have to find out for yourself, because that's as far as I'm going with my synopsis. Now my thoughts on Cold Ice. I come into this film excited. I didn't really have massive expectations because this is a lesser known South Korean film. But the reason why I was excited is because a few other lesser known South Korean films lately have really impressed me. So I was hoping that this is going to be one of them. And although this movie is very interesting and it is actually pretty good in certain areas, ultimately it did let me down because it does have two major problems which I'll go into a little bit later. But what I liked about this film is that it is a different kind of action film. It doesn't rely on traditional action set pieces as far as car chases and shootouts, although it does have some of them. I really like the aspect of the suspenseful action sequences in the surveillance. This movie is really centered upon technology and how powerful technology is, and you really get absorbed into the technology, and I thought it was very thrilling, whether it's someone being watched going through the street and the intricate sort of plans that these two groups, the surveillance team and the criminals, had, and it was kind of like going head to head. So there was a back and forth that was very, cat and mouse, and I thought it was very intriguing, and I really wanted to know who was going to come out in the end, and I thought some of the set pieces were done very, very well. And although, as I said, it's not traditional action set pieces, you're still on the edge of your seat because it just gets you with a lot of suspense, and it seeps through the screen very well, and I just thought you can invest your time into actually what was going on. So as far as production is concerned, this is everything that you'd expect from a South Korean film. Very high-end production. You got some very good cinematography. Some of the set pieces, as far as the technology was concerned, was very good. It shows you how powerful technology is as opposed to, say, 30 years ago, which is something I really liked. And I like the character of the criminal mastermind, so that was very interesting. And then you've got on the other side a group of surveillance specialists who are trying to beat them at their own game. And so you've got two family dynamics here that really work fairly decently, and when they come together you feel that it's going to be a catastrophe waiting to happen. And so it does promise something that is going to be quite thrilling. So there are a lot of aspects in this film that I thought were impressive, and so for that reason I would definitely say go out there and see it. But my problem with this movie is that it doesn't really know when to finish. I thought there was a moment in this film where it could have ended and would have been absolutely perfect, but there comes a point in the last act where it forgets the direction it's going. Now most of this film is about two groups fighting each other, basically trying to outsmart each other, but then in the last act it limits its characters to a point where you feel that, okay, this is really dragging, this is not as interesting as the most of the film was, and so you're waiting for this film to finish, and so it does lose all of its suspense and it loses all of its interest, and it outstays its welcome because it's the curse of the South Korean 2-hour film. Now what I mean by that is that it seems that there is a quota that South Korean films have to fill where it has to be 2 hours, and I thought this movie would have been absolutely fantastic if it was 90 minutes. So they don't really know where to end themselves. They feel as though South Koreans have to make epic films, whereas some movies just aren't epic. And I thought this movie is definitely a case of that. It's not an epic film, it's a fun film. And then unfortunately, because it does stretch it out to meet that quota of 2 hours, it doesn't become fun at the end. So you feel like, hey, I was looking at my watch quite considerably there, but that kind of is disappointing because the first, say, 3/4 of this movie works very well. And so you've got that tension, you've got that back and forth, but the back and forth is forgotten in the last act. And I didn't really like the character development. And the character development, you've got very interesting aspects. As I said, this criminal mastermind was fantastic, but you don't really go into his character enough to really invest your time. And I thought it was a lost opportunity because if the directors actually painted these bad guys as more than just stereotypical sort of villains, I thought it could have given you a conflict of interest, a conflict of emotions as to who do you support, the criminals or the good guys. And so because it was very cut and dry as far as that's concerned, you don't really absorb yourself into the situation because you don't feel like you're watching these real people. You actually feel like you're watching stereotypical sort of villains versus good guys, and it's more about the situation as opposed to actually absorbing yourself into these people. Although the people are interesting, you don't really feel as though you can connect with them. And that was the same with the surveillance team. There was a family dynamic there that I thought was was a little bit forced. But there were moments where I actually thought, okay, the chemistry is good, there's a little bit of banter there, which I actually thought worked. But at the end, it didn't hit me as hard because the attention, as I said, is put onto the actual set pieces, which are very well done. But when it starts to run out towards the end, I thought that it would have been a lot better if these characters were painted to a point where I actually cared about the ending. So that was the biggest problem. And there's also another little problem with the continuity. It actually felt a little bit disjointed in some of the scenes. I thought the editing could have been a little bit better, and that was a little bit noticeable. So that wasn't a massive criticism, and those negatives unfortunately do weigh this film down and prevent it from being a good film. But if you are a fan of South Korean films and you like, you know, back and forth sort of battle of wit style of movies, then I would say go out there and see Cold Eyes. It's not a terrible film, but if you miss the opportunity to see it, you're really not missing out on much. So overall for Cold Eyes, I'm going to give it 3 stars. I enjoyed it for what it was. Go out there and see it. Alright guys, that's it for my review. Hope you enjoyed it. Till next time, keep watching movies, and I'll see you later.